Here's a live look at Scotiabank Arena as the Leafs are getting ready to hit the home ice tonight for the first time during their playoff series against the Boston Bruins. Now, the province is set to increase speed limits on sections of several highways. We're going to tell you where coming up. Student exams at a GTA board, they're not getting properly graded because of a lack of teachers. Those details are coming up. Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at Noon. I'm Bakari Savage. Well, the Maple Leafs are going to be looking to take advantage of their hometown crowd. This is when they host the Boston Bruins in Game 3 tonight with the series tied 1-1. Let's bring in CP24's Beatrice Vaisman with the latest news from this morning's practice. Beatrice.
Bakari, the latest news is that Austin Matthews took the morning off. He was not at morning skate. That always kind of makes us go, uh-oh, we can't play a playoffs game without number 34, who had just an awesome second game in this series. Coach Sheldon Keefe, though, telling us he took the morning off, opting to rest this morning instead. You might wonder what's happening behind me here. Here are the pesky Boston Bruins, just about to finish up their morning skate. Looks like doing some final drills with some of the coaches and scratching team as well. The goalies also getting nice and warmed up. Not too warmed up, though, we hope, because this place is going to be packed with Leafs fans, some 20,000 Leafs fans strong here at Scotiabank Arena to cheer on the Buds in their first home game of this series against Boston. You mentioned we are at 1-1. The Leafs losing big-time lopsided loss, actually. In Game 1, they lost 5-1 to Boston. Game 2, they came out much stronger, not taking as many silly penalties, let's call it. And so Austin Matthews having one of the best games of his career, 2 assists and the game-winning goal with 8 minutes left in the third period. The big question on all of fans' minds, what about William Nylander? Will Willie, number 88, take the ice tonight for Game 3? He was out this morning for the morning skate. He was actually one of the first ones on, last ones off the ice here. And he was skating on his typical line with Yarncroc and Holmberg. We asked the coach, Sheldon Keefe, as well about whether William Nylander is going to be on the ice tonight for Game 3. He says it's still a maybe, depending on how Nylander is going to be feeling after he gets checked out a little bit later on this afternoon. So we could be in for a treat to see number 88 back in the Leaf lineup here on Game 3, but no, I guess, no hard yes from anyone in the Leafs organization at that point. Here's what we heard from this morning when we talked to Coach Keefe along with Mitch Marner out in the locker room after the morning skate.
I've been asked the question a couple times about how do we adjust without Willie. Like, you really don't. You keep pressing on. Like our game plan, Willie comes back in the lineup, he doesn't change. He's like how you need to play and what's required to compete and win at this time of the year is the same no matter who's in or out.
Just got to keep with what we're doing. Just trust, like I said, trust from your D to your goalie to your forwards. A lot of talk on the ice, a lot of communication, letting each other know where people are going and where they're trying to find quiet ice. So we've done a good job of that so far. Got to continue to do that because it's only going to get tougher.
So playoff hockey is some of the best in any sport, Bakari, and certainly the fans will be in for a big show tonight no matter what happens. Of course, we're hoping for a Leafs win, but of course, everyone here at Scotiabank Arena is going to be getting one of these towels. Bring the passion. The fans are going to bring the passion. The players are going to bring a passion as they welcome the Maple Leafs back home to Scotiabank Arena for Game 3. And by the way, if you're hoping to get to the tailgate party tonight, that's not going to happen. It is sold out for tonight. If you're lucky enough to get one of those tickets, you can go in at 5:30 tonight to get the energy, the passion going, because puck drop set for tonight at 7 p.m. Bakari, and you can bet lots of Leafs fans will be holding their breath, hoping that the Leafs take the lead in this series.
Yeah, 7 hours away. Go Leafs, go. Bring that passion, Beatrice. Thanks a lot. Well, a man that Peel Police describes as being a prolific driving offender is in trouble again. 41-year-old Nirmal Singh is now subject to 5 lifetime driving bans. Since 2017, he's been convicted of 35 criminal charges, including impaired and dangerous driving, leaving the scene of an accident, theft, assault, and criminal harassment. Last Thursday, he was arrested in Brampton. This was on a warrant for auto theft, driving while prohibited, and breach of probation. He was taken into custody pending a bail hearing. And police have arrested 3 people in an East End jewelry store robbery. Investigators released this video that you're looking at right now showing 5 suspects entering the store. This is on Monday near Pape and Danforth. Police say that the suspects, they had pepper spray, they smashed display cases with hammers as well, and then they fled the area in a stolen vehicle. But 3 were arrested after a short foot pursuit with police. 2 teenagers and a 26-year-old man, they're facing numerous charges, including armed robbery and possession of property obtained by crime. And a man's in hospital with serious injuries after a fire broke out at an apartment building in North York this morning. Crews were called to a high-rise on Martha Eaton Way near Black Creek in Trethewey just after 8:30. Paramedics say that a man believed to be in his 30s suffered potentially life-threatening burns. There's no word yet on what sparked the fire, and Toronto Fire says that it was contained to 1 unit. Well, drivers in Ontario will soon be able to travel a little bit faster on sections of several highways, including the 401 and 403. The province says that it'll be raising the speed limit from 100 to 110 kilometers an hour. A 35-kilometer stretch of the 401 from Highway 35 to Cobourg is among the areas where there will be limits increased. The speed limit will also be raised on the 403 from Brantford to Hamilton and from Woodstock to Brantford. And parts of highways 406, 416, and the 69 will see the speed limit boosted as well.
These increases will cover over 36%, a full 860 kilometers of Ontario's highway network. They build on the safe and successful increase to 6 sections of provincial highways my colleague, Minister Mulroney, announced in 2022, and helps align Ontario's speed limits with other provinces across Canada.
And the government says that the majority of the changes will take effect July 12th, with the remainder to follow before the end of the year. Well, Ontario Health Minister Sylvia Jones announced today more measures that the government is taking to reduce the administrative burden on family doctors.
Our government is launching an innovative program called AI Scribe to provide for more than 150 primary care providers that safely uses artificial intelligence to automatically summarize or transcribe conversations with patients who consent into electronic medical notes. We will also be making changes to prohibit employees from requiring a sick note for a worker's job-protected sick leave, and encouraging them to use tools such as attestations that maintain accountability as employees request time off when they are sick.
The burden of unnecessary administration takes up an alarming 19 hours a week of physicians' time, keeping them from either patient visits or a healthy work-life balance, or in most cases, both. We estimate that 4 of these hours alone are spent on sick notes and government forms that doctors are asked to fill out every single day. This is why we are encouraged with the steps being announced today by the Minister.
The AI Scribe digital tool is a great example of how artificial technology can solve some of the administrative burden facing primary care. If any of you have been to your family doctor recently, you remember that unfortunately the visit is often interrupted by the family doctor having to face their computer to type in notes. This multitasking is challenging and takes away from the time that I and my colleagues want to give to our patients.
The OMA says that there are 2.3 million people in Ontario without a family doctor. That number is expected to nearly double in the next 2 years. Data shows an increasing number of family medicine spots are going unfilled for new medical school grads. The cost of funding a family medical practice and the significant paperwork associated with the job, those are cited as the main factors. Well, NDP, MPPs, and the Ontario Autism Coalition, they were at Queen's Park this morning calling for improvements to the province's autism program and special education.
2018, Premier Doug Ford said no parent would have to stand on the front lawn of Queen's Park to rally for services their children needed. Fast forward to today, and we see 67,000 kids on the wait list for core services. Core services, which we all know gives children the ability to reach their fullest potential.
The government has so significantly underfunded special education that boards are spending tens of millions of dollars more on special education than what they're receiving. But the system is still threadbare. We do not have the resources to support children with special needs learning in the classroom. And in too many cases, we do not even have the resources that are needed to keep them safe. And we're seeing an increase in the number of violent incidents being reported, but also the number of children who are running away from school.
Our community faces significant challenges in accessing timely and crucial services and support. We need the ministry to not just hear us, but to actively listen and respond to our concerns regarding the Ontario Autism Program, special education, and crucial legislation such as Bill 74, the Missing Persons Amendment Act. Transparency is key. We cannot accept a situation where basic information about programs and services is shrouded in opacity, forcing us to resort to freedom of information requests just to plan our futures.
The Ontario Autism Coalition has a meeting today with the Ministry of Children and Family Services and will be asking for a number of improvements, including the determination of needs process and how long appeals take, as well as increased program capacity. Well, a new report into the expenses of Canadian senators is sure to raise some eyebrows, and CTV National's Scott Hurst is crunching the numbers and joins us live with more. Okay, Scott, senator expenses, they're up 30%. The question is why?
Hey, good afternoon, Bakari. Yeah, 30% jump from just last year to $7.2 million in expenses by Canadian senators. That's up from the $5.6 million in 2022. And we should note these are expenses. This does not include senators' salaries, full-time staffers, administrative personnel, and committee expenses. So according to public policy experts who spoke to CTV News, often the spending boils down to the senator's role. Ultimately, those in leadership typically had higher expenses. Geography plays one of the biggest factors as well, with higher travel costs on average from western provinces and territories. It's just ultimately longer to get to and from Ottawa. That's $4 million in travel expenses, $2.1 million for living costs, and $1 million for office expenses, as well as more than $100,000 in hospitality. So that's how the $7.2 million breaks down. And Canadians should take note of all this, Bakari, ultimately because the bottom line, this is taxpayers' money. This is your money going to these expenses. And of course, a lot of this is allowed. This is all part of what senators are allowed to expense to do their daily jobs and to fulfill their role as senators. But then that is what a lot of political scientists say, and they have this leeway to spend that money. But when you talk to some advocacy groups like Democracy Watch, all of this should matter and all of this should be tracked, and they should be held accountable, not just the big expenses, but everything down to the little expenses as well, because bottom line, as I mentioned, this is taxpayers' money, Bakari.
Hey, Scott, speaking of those expenses, you showed us that graphic right there. Was there anything outside of the range of, travel, basic office costs, and also, can you tell us who spent the most?
Yeah, there is a breakdown of how much each senator spent, and we can go through, in terms of the dollar amount for those that spent the most, those that claim the most expenses. It ranges on average. It ranges from $181,000 to more than $235,000 in expenses. The senator with the most expenses that was claimed was Canadian Senators Group leader Scott Tannis at more than $235,000. And so that is how some of these break down in terms of those senators who ended up claiming the most last year, Bakari.
Okay, CTV National, Scott Hurst. Scott, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bakari.
Right now it's 12:13, 4 degrees. Let's check on the roads with Adjoa Insia-Yabois. Adj, how's the lunch hour looking?
You know what? Not so bad, Bakari. And some good news if you're a commuter on the northbound 400, just north of the 401. We were dealing with this multi-vehicle collision. It did have the 3 right lanes blocked. The problems all came and went, and so is the backlog of traffic. Now, if you're on the eastbound 401, pretty jammed from the 427 all the way to past the 400. In the collectors, we're dealing with a stall. It had the left lane occupied, also cleared the scene. Maintenance impacting the drive on the Don Valley Parkway. Now, the Winford on-ramp to the northbound DVP not accessible because of this emergency roadwork that continues. It is creating a visual delay for commuters that are making their way through and continuing to make big delays on the Gardiner into and out of the downtown core because of the lane restrictions on the Gardiner, which continue for the next several years between Jameson and Strawn. I'll send it back to you, Bakari.
All right, thanks, Adjoa.
Welcome.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, we're going to take a look at the impact a teacher shortage is having at one school. A teacher shortage at a GTA school board has resulted in students not getting properly graded on their exams. Your Catholic School District Board actually confirmed with CTV News that it had given students at St. Maximilian Kolbe Catholic High School in Aurora perfect marks on exams in 2 biology classes and 1 business class. The school board said that there hasn't been a permanent teacher in these classes all semester due to a shortage of those specializing in the subjects. So the board believes that the situation is rare and they'll be able to find a permanent solution soon. And for a closer look at the issue, we're joined live by Annie Kidder, the Executive Director of People for Education. Ms. Kidder, what are your thoughts when just hearing this at face value?
Well, I don't know. I worry about the word rare. I don't think the situation is rare. I was talking to a young supply teacher who said she's going into classes where they've only had supply teachers for a whole term. So she's going into places where there are no lessons planned, where there's no kind of, okay, this is what we're doing. Can you just keep doing it for us? So I don't think it's rare. I think it's really, really worrying. These are kids, in grade 11 and 12. It is really important they're getting all the content, but for everybody, it's important that they're getting, the best education possible.
What about actually receiving the information and retaining that information so that you can carry that on to, further your life and your education?
Well, exactly. And I think, and you can think about that all the way from grade 1 to grade 12, because an education isn't just about information. It's about, the learning experience and solving problems and collaborating and figuring things out together and, failing and starting again and working on stuff. That all happens in school, along with acquiring really, vital knowledge. So, I don't even want to argue with whether it's a bad idea or a good idea to give kids the 100%. But obviously, it's an emergency idea that this is what's happening, that these kids haven't had, a qualified homeroom teacher in that subject for the whole term. And I'm not sure that we're taking this seriously enough.
And, when it comes to the terms of, teachers specializing in those subjects, this isn't the first time that we've heard something like this, especially when it comes to, technical courses that are being introduced and having, teachers who actually specialize in that.
Yeah. So, and we're just going to have the province has announced a compulsory tech courses that you have to take in order to graduate. And they're already saying we don't have the specialist teachers to teach them. So I think, to me, this is a sign of a kind of lack of overall coherent plan. I'm not sure we're taking it seriously enough. And it's definitely time for everybody, and this is not just teacher organizations, but principals and school board directors and the provincial government and students, deans of faculties of education, to all be at the table, doing the kind of problem solving that's going to make a long-term plan and not just short-term kind of Band-Aid solutions.
Well, speaking of, any possible solution, any possible answer you'd like to capitulate?
Well, I don't have one, and, I'm lucky I don't have to run the education system. But I think that I know it's not a solution, but the first thing is getting everybody at the table in a pretty transparent way to go, okay, what is our plan? What's our plan in the short term for the next, 3 months of school? And what's our plan come the fall? And then what's the plan for the long term to make sure that we have sufficient teachers and educational assistants, because they're also missing. We have sufficient specialists in all the subjects, which is incredibly important all the way through school, but especially in high school. And that's, I don't see that happening right now. And and again, to me, it goes back to, is the rest of the world understanding how much this is going to have an effect on all of us? We need to be graduating kids who can deal with the messy, complex world they're going to be going into. And if they don't have the teachers they need, that's going to be a problem.
Annie Kidder, the Executive Director of People for Education. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, drivers, get ready. Long-term lane restrictions, they are coming to the 401. Drivers already dealing with lane closures on the Gardiner due to construction work, and now the need to brace for closures on the 401, the busiest highway in the country. Westbound express lanes are set to be reduced between Avenue and the 400 for long-term construction. So right now we're joined live by Maddie Simiatiki, professor of geography and planning and the director of the Infrastructure Institute at the University of Toronto. So planning, let's talk about that. What happened here? What was the lack of planning? What was the thought process into this now that we already have the Gardner to deal with?
How is this even possible? That with the Gardner, with all the construction downtown, that we're now doing more construction on the 401. It just seems like everything is coming together everywhere all at once. This is going to be even more frustration for motorists across our region. And it's just, we're struggling to come out of the pandemic to create places where people can get around and places where people can get back to work. And this is just going to be one more frustration that is just going to exacerbate a problem that is in our region. We know we have among the worst congestion in the world, and no one will be surprised that this is just going to make things worse.
What's the responsibility for planning when it comes to all of this?
We surely need coordination, and some of these are being done by different orders of government. The 401 and the 400 series highways, those are provincial. The Gardner, until recently, that was municipal. But still, we do need to be coordinating. We need to be making sure that there's enough ways for people to get around and for goods to get around. Our region is an important goods movement hub. We need to make sure that trucks and goods can get around as well as people to the places they need to go to.
How is it possible that these people were not on the same page, and what is it going to take to get them there?
They're in different offices, they're in different orders of government. They each make their own plans, but surely they do need to be coordinating. We could talk at great length about how they should have meetings where they talk across organizations, where they share plans with each other. But ultimately, we're in a point where we missed a generation of investment and we're playing huge catch up. You also see that the state of good repair of many of our assets are starting to decline. And so this construction, while frustrating, is also critically necessary, and we should reinforce that. We do need to make sure we're investing in maintenance. As frustrating as it is much easier to do it when you're doing it proactively rather than when it's in an emergency state. But nevertheless, it does need to be coordinated so people can still get around, and it needs to be done efficiently.
But then there's a little bit of good news. The speed limit's going to be going up, well, where you can, right?
Where in this region do people get to drive 110 kilometers an hour? But nevertheless, for those in areas where there isn't congestion, the speed limit will be going up. There are trade-offs even with this plan. It's worse for the environment. Our engines are less efficient at higher speeds. But I think that if it's the flow of traffic and if it can be done safely, I think this will bring motorists at least some sense of relief on our roads.
All right, Maddie Simiatiki, professor of geography and planning and director of the Infrastructure Institute at the University of Toronto. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bakari.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, the Leafs are getting ready to hit the home ice tonight for the first time during their playoff series against the Boston Bruins. All right, here's a live look at Scotiabank Arena as the Leafs are getting ready to hit the home ice tonight for the first time during their playoff series against the Boston Bruins. And the province is set to increase speed limits on sections of several highways. We're going to tell you where, coming up. The student exams at a GTA board are not getting properly graded because of a lack of teachers. Those details coming up. Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at noon. I'm Bakari Savage. Well, the Leafs are going to be looking to use their home crowd as they return to Toronto with their series against Boston tied 1-1. Many of the players taking to the ice this morning, including William Nylander, who has yet to play in the playoffs, but was skating on a regular line during practice. And Toronto's coming off a gritty 3-2 victory against the Bruins and saw Austin Matthews score the game-winning goal on a breakaway.
I think, like, if you talk to anyone in this room, we just want to win. We just want to win hockey games. We want to do the best we can out there every time you touch the ice. So that's where my mindset's at, and that's what I'm trying to do every time I get out there.
Obviously, we're playing a great team. I don't think they were happy with the result, so yeah, we're gonna have to be ready for them to come out hot tonight.
Sheldon, what are the chances William plays tonight?
There's a chance. Obviously, still out there getting work, and everything for him is just how he responds, and take it from there.
Puck drop at Scotiabank is at 7 p.m. Well, a man's in hospital with serious injuries after a fire broke out at an apartment building in North York this morning. And crews were called to a high-rise on Martha Eaton Way. This is near Black Creek and Trethewey, just after 8:30 this morning. The paramedics say that a man believed to be in his 30s suffered potentially life-threatening burns. There's no word yet on what sparked the fire. And Toronto Fire says that it was contained to just the one unit. And a man Peel police describe as a prolific driving offender is in trouble. Yet again, 41-year-old Nirmal Singh is now subject to 5 lifetime driving bans. Since 2017, he's been convicted of 35 criminal charges, including impaired and dangerous driving, leaving the scene of an accident, theft, assault, and criminal harassment. Last Thursday, he was arrested in Brampton on a warrant for auto theft, driving while prohibited, and breach of probation. He was taken into custody pending a bail hearing. And police have arrested 3 people in an East End jewelry store robbery. Investigators released this video showing 5 subjects entering the store. This is on Monday near Pape and Danforth. And police say that the suspects had pepper spray and they smashed display cases with hammers. They did flee the area in a stolen vehicle, but 3 of them were arrested after a short foot pursuit with police. 2 teenagers and a 26-year-old man, they're facing numerous charges, including armed robbery and possession of property obtained by crime. And drivers in Ontario will soon be able to travel a little bit faster on sections of several highways, including the 401 and 403. The province says that it'll be raising the speed limit from 100 to 110 kilometers an hour. A 35-kilometer stretch of the 401 from Highway 35 to Cobourg, that's among the areas where the limit's going to be increased. The speed limit will also be raised on the 403 from Brantford to Hamilton and from Woodstock to Brantford. And parts of highways 406, 416, and 69 will see the speed limit boosted as well.
Much of Ontario's highway network was originally designed for speed limits of 110 kilometers per hour, or to safely have them with minimal upgrades. And data from our speed limit increases in 2022 show they are doing just that. All the highway sections we've selected were based on their ability to safely accommodate higher speeds.
And the government says that the majority of the changes will take effect July 12th, with the remainder to follow before the end of the year. Well, Ontario Health Minister Sylvia Jones announced today more measures that the government's taking to reduce the administrative burden on family doctors.
As part of our government's Patients Before Paperwork initiative, we have already taken action to axe the facts, to speed up diagnosis, referrals, and treatments. We've expanded e-services to digitize more referral and consultation forms so that they can be conveniently shared electronically, and to improve the e-form platform to make it more convenient for providers to autofill and share forms, freeing up as much as 95,000 hours per year.
We are pleased that the province will move forward to prohibit employers under certain circumstances from obtaining a sick note from their physician. Over time, we would like to see sick notes eliminated completely. This is practical, as physicians cannot diagnose illness after the fact, and it saves workers both time and money. We also welcome new funding for the innovative artificial intelligence scribe pilot project. AI is a new frontier with great potential to reduce administrative burden, but we need to test this technology. So we thank the Minister for funding Ontario MD, an OMA subsidiary, and its partner to launch this innovative pilot project on AI scribes.
AI scribes are an exciting new technology that listen to the conversations that I am having with my patient and organizes the information into a high-quality clinical note that I can review, edit, and use in my chart. And this means that with patient consent, instead of focusing on documentation, I can focus on them, listening to their concerns and addressing their problems.
The OMA says that there are 2.3 million people in Ontario without a family doctor. That number is expected to nearly double in the next 2 years. Data shows an increasing number of family medicine spots that are going unfilled for new medical school grads. The cost of funding a family medical practice and the significant paperwork associated with the job, those are cited as the main factors. NDP MPPs and the Ontario Autism Coalition, they were at Queen's Park this morning calling for improvements to the province's autism program and special education.
The government will say they have added more money than ever before in history. This is true, but throwing money at a program that is not working and leaves kids behind is a bad plan and a waste of our precious dollars. Let's work together to bring forward the right solutions, to find funding, and to clear the wait list. Treat kids with needs-based programs in a timely manner. Support students in classrooms and schools, and pass Bill 74 to ensure people are aware when a vulnerable person goes missing.
We need the government to significantly invest in our schools so that these children actually have the supports that they need in order to be able to participate. We're also hearing about more than half of principals saying that they have had to ask parents of children with special needs to keep their child at home for the day because there are no supports for that child to keep them safe at school.
The ministry must be forthcoming about the rollout and functioning of the Ontario Autism Program, about what this year's budget increase actually means, and what is being done to ensure that every child in Ontario has access to a safe and meaningful education. While there may be attempts to paint a rosy picture, the reality on the ground is starkly different. We cannot label the Ontario Autism Program as world-class when 80% of children who are registered are stuck on a wait list for critical services.
The Ontario Autism Coalition has a meeting today with the Minister of Children and Family Services and will be asking for a number of improvements, including the determination of needs process and how long appeals take, as well as increased program capacity. Well, the motion to fly an anti-abortion flag at all schools within Toronto Catholic District School Board next month has failed.
Everyone, that the motion does not carry. The motion fails. Silence, please, in the gallery. No. Security, please clear the building of our visitors this evening. They are not prepared to remain silent.
Board Chair Nancy Crawford ordered people be removed from the gallery after the motion was rejected. Many shouting shame following the vote. Michael Delgrand, who put forward the motion, was the only trustee to support it. A new report finds that Toronto rent is on the decline for the third month in a row. According to a recent report by rentals.ca, the average asking price for a rental apartment in the city is now down 0.7% month over month to an average of $2,700. However, Toronto remains the third most expensive city to live in for renters, ranking only below BC cities Burnaby and Vancouver. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in Oakville this morning for a housing announcement, and Trudeau says that the feds will lease public lands for construction through its new housing strategy.
No one order of government can solve the housing crisis on its own, but we're putting forward the most comprehensive and ambitious housing plan Canada has ever seen. But you're right, there needs to be more. Municipalities need to step up with ambition around densification, particularly around campuses and public transit stops. Provinces need to step up on partnering to build more wastewater and infrastructure that's going to enable housing. They need to be able to move forward on zoning that's going to make a difference right across their province.
And the federal housing strategy promises to build 3.9 million homes by 2031, and it includes a bevy of measures, as well as $8.5 billion in additional spending. Well, more than 5 million transfers between TTC and Metrolinx have occurred since the One Fare program was put in place. Transit riders pay one fare when traveling between the TTC and GO Transit, as well as several other GTA transit agencies. The program began including the TTC at the end of February, with the government saying that it could save commuters up to $1,600 a year. Well, speaking of travel, let's get a check on the roads with Angela Encilia-Bois. It's 12:41. Adge, the lunch hour, it's coming to an end.
It's winding down, so definitely getting busier out there on a lot of the major area highways. So we're seeing some major delays, Bakari. On the Don Valley Parkway in particular, that's because of some emergency road work. So not just the lunch hour rush. It is the Winford on-ramp to the northbound Don Valley Parkway, not accessible because of this ongoing emergency road work. Again, creating a visual delay. No lanes actually blocked on the highway, just the ramp that's impacted, but getting slower now as you approach Winford Drive on the northbound Don Valley. On the 401, 401, it's the eastbound side that remains busy. A lot of, lunch people making their way back to work. It's slow from the 427 out towards about the Keele Street stretch. And if you're on the southbound lanes of the 400, no live lane issues. But you are definitely looking at a slow go from Shepherd onto the east and westbound 401 ramps. If I do spot a problem, I'll keep you in the know. I'll send it back to you, Bakari.
The CP24 traffic report is brought to you by CapitalDirect.ca.
Talks continue in Ottawa towards a global treaty on plastic. Negotiators are working on the framework for a global agreement that would end plastic waste by 2040. And for a closer look at this, we're joined live by Anthony Morant, senior plastics campaigner for Oceania Canada. Thank you very much for taking time to speak with us. So let's talk about, what's happening in Ottawa in terms of this global treaty.
Yeah, so right now we have 176 countries descending upon Ottawa. It's a lot of people for a big town. And right now, everyone...
Okay, it looks like we have lost him. We'll try to get back to him after the break. Okay, we're going to try this one more time, but first we're going to take a break. Coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, we'll preview Game 2 of the Leafs versus Bruins series with TSN Radio's Matt Cause. Okay, after some technical difficulties, we're going back to our conversation on plastics as talks continue in Ottawa towards a global treaty on plastic. Negotiators are working on the framework for a global agreement, which would end plastic waste by 2040. And for a closer look at this, we're joined by Anthony Morant live, who is a senior plastics campaigner for Oceania Canada. So let's talk about the conversations happening in Ottawa right now.
Yeah, we have 176 countries descending upon the nation's capital to discuss how we're going to tackle plastic pollution. This large global problem really needs a coordinated effort, and seeing if this treaty can really have some teeth in ending plastic waste.
Okay, so speaking of, let's also talk about how Canada has been leading the way for this. I mean, we've had bans on plastic bags as well as ending the use of plastic cutlery.
Across the globe, we have a call for ending plastic pollution. Stuff in the treaty is talking about phasing out single-use plastics, a production cap, public transparency on plastic production. But as you said, Canada has already started moving on that agenda ahead. This treaty is about bringing everyone up to the same scale. Canada's already put out a ban. We recently had a federal plastics registry come out, which would actually show how much plastic Canada is producing, selling, and disposing. And we have more regulations in the pipeline. So really, Canada is positioning itself as a leader here.
Okay, so Anthony, why is this so important? I mean, for a while, plastic was everywhere. We looked for that.
Plastic is still everywhere. I think we see that the ban is working. I walk down the river just down here in Ottawa, and I don't see plastic bags stuck up in trees anymore, but there's still more work to do. Research is coming out weekly that it's not just an outside problem. Plastic pollution is now found in our bodies. We have microplastics in our blood, in our lungs. They've just been found in our brain, and they're starting to be linked to diseases like cancers, respiratory illnesses, and hormone disruption. So this is an all environments kind of problem.
And, along those lines with plastics everywhere, what is the ultimate goal in working towards that?
So the UN, talk to the average person. Is it effective? Is it not? That'll differ by opinion, but let's not forget that the UN is the same reason that the ozone is not depleting. The UN is the same reason smokers know the risks associated with tobacco, the health risks associated with cancers and smoking. Now, if this treaty has real teeth, we can have a global effort to rein in plastic pollution, not just at the end of the pipeline as litter, but at the production level as well. So we're really excited about this. We're hopeful, but we really need countries like Canada to take a strong leadership role and push this over the edge.
And also, Anthony, talk about the timing of this, just coming off of Earth Day.
I think it's perfect timing. I wish the weather was a little nicer in Ottawa to host this, but it is a good reminder that we have one planet, it's finite, and currently we're filling it up with plastic pollution. That's the emissions associated with oil and gas extraction, because plastic is oil. The communities that live next to those petrochemical plants are often put in the face of that pollution, but also as consumers, we are faced with inundated solutions in plastic. We have plastic in our grocery stores where there once was metal, glass, paper, or even unwrapped produce. I think we're limited in our options now. And as a consumer worried about environmental health, my own personal health, I want those options back.
But what about recycling? Haven't gains been made just by recycling?
I think recycling is something that the industry and a lot of oil and gas companies will tell you is a really good solution. But let's look at the data and be real about it. Only 9% of plastics are recycled globally. It's even less in Canada. It's only 8%. What we need to realize is that the narrative of recycling means you, the consumer, are mismanaging plastics. You, the consumer, are the waste problem. But I don't think we should be allowing producers to make materials and put recycling labels on them that are being sold on our shelves. So we think we're making sustainable choices, and we're finding out later by the data we're not. So it really should be a producer responsibility-led initiative.
What's a tangible difference you want people to walk away with? Something that we can all go out and start doing tomorrow?
I want people to know that there are options out there, but this narrative that you, the consumer, are the problem, that's not the case. I want people to continue doing good habits like bringing their own cup, refilling their water bottle, bringing their own bag. But I also want you to be a little more vocal. When you're at a cafe or a restaurant, say it is for here and ask for reusable materials. Talk to your local representatives at the city, provincial, and federal level and tell them you support a strong plastic ban. We don't think plastic pollution should be a partisan issue. It affects us all. It affects all of our environments. No one likes a dirty environment. And also, everyone prioritizes their own health, if anything. So we need to fight for these solutions at the system level.
Anthony Moranci, Senior Plastics Campaigner for Oceania Canada. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the Maple Leafs are going to be looking to take advantage of their home crowd when they host the Bruins in Game 3 tonight with the series tied 1-1. Right now, we're joined live by TSN Radio's Matt Cause. Okay, Matt, Austin Matthews, Nylander, what's going on here?
Well, let's start with what we do know. Austin Matthews played perhaps his best game as a Maple Leaf in Game 2 against Boston. Not only the game-winning goal, and that was a difficult one for him to score, he also had 2 assists. He was also great defensively, swatted the puck away with about a minute left. That was the best version we've seen of Austin Matthews, and I think we're all curious to see what sort of encore do we get. If you can get even, 90% of what that was on Monday night, the Leafs should be in good shape. As for Nylander, we're still waiting. Some of our reporters at TSN are saying it looks like it's likely Nylander will not play tonight, even though he was on the ice and he was practicing. It feels like he is close, and we're going to have to wait. We might not know till around 6 o'clock or so when the official lineup's released. Maybe they're resting him because there is an extra day off because Game 4 wouldn't be until Saturday night.
Okay, Matt, also, I'm looking at a post on social media from the Bruins coach saying that I would rather be here Thursday, Friday. If I'm being honest, I think we're spending more time in Toronto than Toronto's spending in Boston, and we're the home team. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that. That is a new one for me. Is that some sort of new heat that's going on? A little bit of trash talking? No, that's a new one. I've been so focused on what's going on the ice, I haven't been seeing what's going on social media.
All right, well, let's talk about this. Home ice. You know what I'm saying? This is Game 3, and you have fans saying, okay, this is the year. ESPN.com is also saying that the Leafs will get the trophy. What are your thoughts?
The Leafs getting the trophy, I will go nowhere near anything like that. I will say it's going to be an incredible environment tonight in Toronto. And I know Leaf fans often get criticized, and sometimes rightfully so. It's not as loud as you would want in other barns in North America, but it's going to be an intense environment. You know the guy I can't wait for? I can't wait to see Max Domi at home. This was a guy as a kid sitting on his dad's lap, sitting with friends watching his dad play for the Maple Leafs back in the day. I'm curious about that. I think, though, statistically, there isn't as much of an advantage with home court in the NHL as there is in the NBA. But it's going to be a great environment inside, maybe even more so outside of Maple Leaf Square.
Okay, so as we wrap up, what do you see happening tonight?
I see pain and misery for both sides. I think this is going to be a very close game. You had great goaltending both sides. I would actually expect Boston maybe to pull it out. I think this series is going to go 7. The main thing I'm looking for is 1, Austin Matthews, and 2, that second line, Mitch Marner. Can he actually produce on the score sheet? If he can, Toronto wins. But let's face it, no matter what happens tonight, we're probably looking at 7 games, considering how even these teams are.
Oh, man. TSN Radio's Matt Cause making everybody work for it, literally.
It's not my fault. Don't blame me.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching CP24 Live at noon.